Okay, so we are starting with a new series for MatMed on the Hub. And in this series, it's all about the Aqua remedies, the remedies that are made from some liquid source. And we're going to go through a pretty broad array, things that come from healing sacred wells, things that come from lakes in the middle of nowhere, things that come from the ocean, from a tear, from, bodies and ecology and everything. And some of these are remedies that we really want to think of in a chronic, this is a constitutional picture sense. Some of them are remedies that we really want to think of in terms of this is like a lesional or acute or a subset of the chronic case. And some of them we want to think of in the same way we would think of a cell salt. This is something that provides a metabolic support. And so as we go through this whole series, you're going to have a chance to look through different lenses at this group of remedies. Anybody using these remedies now? Some of you guys using these remedies now? Anybody used Aqua Marina or have it in your kit? Taken it yourself, maybe? I'm going to encourage all of you guys to have a shot at it yourself. Okay. So let's get started. I want to welcome everybody here. I want to welcome all of the new people who haven't been part of this Materia Medica on the Hub series before. I'm super glad to have you all here with us. The recording of this will be posted on the Hub in the MatMed page for the Hub subscribers. For people who want to watch it after, who are registered free, we will be putting this up in the December open access page. So if you see something in here that you like and you want to discuss it with colleagues, send them to get registered for free on the Hub, and then they'll be able to watch this video in the December open access page, and then you guys can discuss it together, okay? All right, let's get started. We're going to start with 3 cases, and these 3 cases, we're not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm just going to give you sort of the what's important, what's crucial in these cases. The first case is a chronic case that is just a constitutional picture of this remedy. In this case, we have a fellow who is 26 years old, and he has severe chronic fatigue. He has spent probably 30 to 40% of his life in bed. And his biggest complaint now is that he is being tormented by demons. And these demons put inappropriate sexual thoughts into his mind. It comes up in his dreams, these really vulgar sexual dreams. It comes into his mind very frequently, and he does not want these thoughts. And so his way of coping with it is a religious way where he prays the rosary. He plays spiritual music. At night, if he has one of these dreams, he has to get up and turn on the light and put on the spiritual music so that it can protect him. He often has the shutters pulled down and the curtains closed, and sometimes he will also move a bookcase in front of the window because he is sure that these demons are watching him from the windows, or they can see in like a crack on the edge of the door. And so he wants everything to be blocked off because he feels like he is being spied on. He's being watched by these demons who are tormenting him. He has a long-term cough that has one unusual characteristic. He says it tastes in his mouth like rust smells like iron rust. And the last thing is that he is quite thin, and he has a long history of anemia, and eating helps him feel better. If he's having these tormenting thoughts, he eats and he feels better. and the thoughts recede for a while, but then they'll come back again. Now, this guy, by the time that I see him, has probably been given 100 remedies. He's been evaluated for schizophrenia. And there's not really anything clear. And he has had, the remedy that he reacted to the best was sulfuric acid. And that got him from, 50 or 60% of his time in bed to 30 to 40%, and then stopped acting. So he's been given remedies in every kingdom, from every phylum, he's been given so many remedies, and really they didn't help. So what the core of the case comes down to is incredible depletion. Eating ameliorates. A chronic cough with this weird taste, rusty taste. A sense of being tormented and watched and spied on by demons, where his coping mechanism for it is religious prayer. That's the whole case. And this is an example of Aqua Marina that has a lot of the similarities of Nature Mirror with a religious component in it, and it has metabolic depletion on every level. The author Julien writes about this remedy as a tubercular remedy, a phosphoric constitution, where very often there is some disorder of the thyroid. And so you'll get emaciation, eating ameliorates, even when their labs test normal. So the response for this fellow of Aqua Marina, LM1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, was one to get him gradually back to a whole productive life that he had never had. He was sickly as a kid, he was sickly as a baby, he was sickly through high school, and now finally is in this amazing place where he's looking for a job, he's cooking meals for the family, he's looking at moving out to a new place on his own, he's no longer tormented. Now, he'd been given MatMed. He'd been given so many remedies. So the qualities of this that are unique about this remedy have to do with being spied on, with a religious affectation, with amelioration from eating, and with this weird rusty taste that comes with a cough. Remember, Julien says this is a tubercular remedy. In the tubercular remedies, they may cough up blood or derived products from blood that give it this taste. Okay, this is an extreme case of what I would say it's like the most florid case of what Aqua Marina can look like. Now let's look at a second case. This is a client who is never well since mononucleosis. And this is one of the things that Massimo Mangialavore teaches as a quality of this remedy, that it is an amazing repair for people who are never well since mono. This woman had mono 4 years ago and has been in incredible fatigue. She's got very swollen glands all the time. And she is gradually losing weight, even though her appetite is strong. Nothing shows up abnormally in the labs. She's been given every post-influenzal remedy you can imagine over that 4 years by 5 different homeopaths. And she has had no response. Lack of reaction is an indicator for Aqua Marina. So she was given Aqua Marina in 6x potency to take 5 times a day. And this was not I was working with a team of homeopaths. It wasn't even my idea. I didn't think of it. I didn't know this. And Massimo was the one who actually said, I think that this would be an indication for mono, working with one of the other homeopaths in our group. So from the time that she started, and Massimo usually uses LMs, The practitioner who was this woman's specific homeopath didn't have the LMs and just started her on a 6X. And from the very first day, she began to get better. Okay, case 3. This is a case where the remedy is being used in a metabolic way to improve health. The woman has severe menstrual migraines. She's in her late 20s, and her husband is pressuring her to get pregnant and have a baby, desperately wants to have children. He's getting pressure from his family in their family culture. It's hugely important, and to be 28 years old and not already have 3 kids is a big problem. So he's pressuring the wife. She's scared to have kids. She has an autistic sibling. She has another sister who had an autistic child. And there's a lot of not great stuff in the family genetics. And she is very scared that she's going to have a child that has some kind of problems. So this was a case that I discussed with MJ Hannafin, who some of you guys may know her. She was a midwife in California. She's a British gal. She taught midwifery and homeopathy all over the world and did amazing service work. In cases like this, she would tell the woman, we need to improve the metabolic inheritance of the child, in the same way that cell salts are based on the idea that there's problems in the cells that you nourish by taking cell salts. There is a point of view that says there are problems in the cellular milieu, the intercellular, intracellular, extracellular, all of that stuff is not working well, which is one point of view about why we end up with a conception and a child born that has difficulties, which can be related to toxins, it can be related to nutritional deficiencies, it can be related to genetic problems, it can be related to all kinds of stuff. And so MJ Hannafin had this woman start taking 12C of Aqua Marina twice a week for 6 months. During that time, her menstrual migraines completely went away. And when she conceived, she had a very healthy pregnancy, very healthy baby. Now, these are 3 scenarios where you might want to think about this remedy, and just to give you the breadth of it. But what's really interesting about this remedy is when you go back into the background of it and find out, where did it really come from? There are 2 provings of this remedy. One of them was done in 1871 by Wesselhaft, and it's printed in an old American homeopathy journal. The other one was done in 1962 by P. Sankaran, and it was printed in the British Homeopathic Journal. Both of these provings have a lot of granular data and no conclusion about the broader aspects of it. The impetus to do the proving of this and the source that they used was based on the work of a biologist and physiologist named René Quinton. He was a French researcher, and he was fascinated with what he called sea plasma. He went through a whole series of clinical trials. And remember, this was like in the 1870s, 80s, 90s, when a lot of kids had severe malnutrition. People didn't know what they know now about nutrition and how it affects the body. So he did all of these clinical trials where he gave either injections or a nose spray or a liquid drink of seawater diluted in a particular way to children, to elders, to pregnant women to everybody. And he had these miracle cures. And people would come to, you know, in the way that people would come across Europe to see Hahnemann for homeopathy, people would come across Europe to see Quinton and work with his clinic. Okay, so where did he get the seawater? You know, when we think aqua marina, we think somebody walked down to the beach and scooped up some water and maybe poured it through a filter and potentized it, right? Wouldn't that be what you'd think? That's not what it was at all. He became aware in talking with sailors that there were these areas of big plankton blooms. And we know now that there are like 6 or 7 of these in the ocean at any given time, where there's actually tremendous upwelling happening because of thermoclines in the ocean. And there are changes in salinity and warmth that cause the water to move in a vortex. And in these vortexes, they get very, very rich with plankton and with all kinds of nutrients. And then the big fish, the whales, come through there. The little fish come to eat. The bigger fish come to eat the little fish. And they create this incredibly rich environment. And so Quinton would go and collect water from one of these vortexes that was off the coast of France. And it was like many miles from shore, 10 miles from shore. And he would get the water that was well below the surface, like 6, 8, 10 feet down, and collect water in these glass bottles. And he would bring it back to his lab, and he would mix the water, 1 part seawater, 2 parts pure fresh water. So he would dilute the salinity of the salt water, the chemical compound of the salt water, until it was isotonic. So if you remember back to your chemistry, if you took chemistry in high school or college, in chemistry, isotonic means it has neutral osmotic pressure. So osmosis is the thing that makes stuff move into or out of a cell, into or out of an area of water. If you put a 1/4 cup of incredibly concentrated salt water into a gallon, it doesn't stay right there. It moves and distributes itself all through the water. Same thing happens with a cell. There's a concentration of salt or sodium or magnesium or calcium or potassium within the cell, and also in the fluids outside the cell. An isotonic solution of seawater is one where there is no pressure to move water or chemicals into or out of the cell. It matches the nature of human extracellular fluid. So this was René Quinton's big discovery. And he began to work with the exact same ideas that Schussler was working with in quite a similar time frame, because this was sort of part of where science was going, in the way that Schussler said all disease arises from nutritional deficiencies within the cell. René Quinton said it is deficient nature of extracellular fluids that can't nourish the cells. His idea was that nature started with living activity from one-celled oceanic organisms. And the ocean brought that organism everything that it needs. And so he believes that if we provide those same products of the ocean to the cells in the body, it will heal itself. The other thing about it is that there are all of these nutrients in that seawater that are in an incredibly bioavailable form. So this is quite different than saying, oh, somebody needs potassium, let's give them a potassium supplement that may or may not be bioavailable. Let's give them a calcium supplement that may or may not, or magnesium. He believed that this was the most perfect way of introducing nutrition and balance to the cells. And he healed a lot of people. In 1904, he wrote this book, Water of the Ocean in an Organic Milieu. And he showed that when you dry out the marine plasma, you completely destroy the healing quality of it. And this basically was what Schussler had done. He had taken all of the dry minerals. What Quinton believed was that it had to be presented in its active state. And some of the things that came out of his research were a belief that seawater is the oldest system of communication between cells, and that upstream of any illness is an unbalanced terrain. And these are ideas that make perfect sense to us. So if you're interested in reading more about this now, there is a researcher and author named Roy Dittmann, Dittmann, who has studied a lot of René Quinton's stuff. And he wrote this book. What's the name of his book? It's called Brighton Baby, A Revolutionary Organic Approach to Having an Extraordinary Child. And he says that a lot of the trends toward autism and ADD and birth defects and low sperm count and infertility are all due to these depletion defects. And he uses René Quinton's products with the marine plasma. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see these. This is basically what the Aqua marina is made from. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is on this website. Quinton Medical is the same. This is René Quinton's clinic that eventually moved from France into Spain. They still collect the water. They still go through Quinton's same process to make it an isotonic product, and they ship it all over the world, and they call it marine therapy. And so they have different products. They have ones that you drink, stuff that you use as a nasal spray, stuff that you use as an eye wash. And I'm going to show you the products that they have. They come in these glass ampules, and you just break the tip off and drink it. And you can order these on Amazon. These products are out there. Are any of you guys familiar with seawater therapy? Until I started researching some of this, I was not familiar at all with Quinton's work. And we've been seeing, Alicia says this is one of the therapeutics for autism. Oh, Chana, you've taken it before. Great. What I was familiar with for ocean water was the native Hawaiian approaches to a microbiome repair, where you drink a certain amount of ocean water for 4 days, and basically you rebuild the microflora in your gut. But I was not familiar with these products until I did some research in the background about Aqua marina. This is what the remedy is made from. So when you are purchasing 3X or 6X or 6C. And I've only used this remedy, I don't think I've ever used it in higher than a 30C. Generally, I use a lot of 3X and a lot of 6X, but there is huge value when you see someone with metabolic weakness, when you see young people who already have osteoporosis, when you see people with swollen glands, when you see people with phosphoric constitution, they used to call them weedy children, the ones that were growing too tall, too fast, and their knees and joints hurt. They have easy dislocations. Think about all of this and think about this as an adjunct for every woman who has menstrual migraines. Think about it as a remedy for people who are having problems with not being able to digest and metabolize the vitamins that they take, where they've got chronically low values, women with low ferritin, women with low calcium values, anybody with a goiter, anybody with thyroid dysfunction, particularly hyperthyroid. I think that Aqua Marina is a very natural companion to calc phos and calc iodatum, both of which are tubercular remedies. Wonderful companion. And so, like if I have somebody on calc phos cell salts or they're being given calc phos as a chronic remedy, I will very often add in Aqua Marina. Okay, so what do you think, guys? Is this something that you feel like you have enough information now to stock it, to try using it? The sources that I want to recommend for reading about it, one of them is O.A. Julian, Julian, French homeopath, and he has a good write-up about it. It's in Clark's Dictionary and Allen's Encyclopedia. Those are the ones from the Wesselheft proving. You can't find very many published cases, but I want you to start thinking of Aqua Marina the way that you think of the combination of cell salts like bioplasma or something. Oh, good question, Kana. For anemia, would you give it in 3X or 6X or in a C potency? I usually give it in a low X. So 6X is great. And you can think of it sort of like an equivalent of Hyland's bioplasma. But I want to point out what I always want to give it in water. And when I've ordered this, I've very often ordered it for clients to be sent to them in solution, not in dry pellets. Remember what René Quinton found in his research. If he dried the water out and he tried to use it therapeutically, it didn't act. At that point, he said it was dead. And because the seawater was dead, it could not do its correct job. So one of the things that I really want you to think about is having people use these ketone products as well as a remedy. It works very well to have them do like an ampule of the water in the middle of the week and a 12C dose on the weekend. Oh, Claire says, could it be helpful in chronic lymphocyte leukemia? It is listed for lymphomas in Julian's writing, for lupus, for autoimmune. So it could be. It could be. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Did I say one ampule and a 12C? Yes, like in the middle of the week, one ampule. And again, I just, most of the time, We have really great reasons to potentize things. Ain't nobody gonna be drinking ampules of lachesis, right? That's just never gonna happen. But this is a nourishing product, and I really want to encourage everybody to be looking at those products. The best way you can find out about this is to order some of these products. Order the remedy in 6X, take it once a day or 2 or 3 times a day for 3 weeks and see what changes. Order the ampules and take one of them a week. They come in a box of 36. And see what changes for you. Hahnemann tells us that we know best those things that we ourselves have experienced. And I think this is an incredibly underutilized therapeutic that could be helpful for every woman with menstrual migraines. It could be helpful for people with hot flashes, for anybody with osteoporosis, just work with it, work with it, work with it, okay? Oh, you had much relief. Okay. Cool. All right, guys. Have a fabulous couple of weeks. Next week, we will be doing organ therapeutics, organs on the hub for the liver. And then the week after that, we will be back again with more Aqua remedies. Have a fabulous week. Take care. Bye-bye.